Hey everyone, what's up today? This is Iri Ezips, and today you stumbled into this channel that talks a lot about how to make customers successful. And with that, let's say we think we made them successful, but how do we actually prove to them how much success they've actually gotten from us? And today I have Guy Rahamim. As a reminder, he was the runner-up for the Rising Star category in the Customer Success Excellence Award in EMEA 2022 to share how him and his customer success teams are actually working with customers to prove ROI, return on investment, and actually quantifying that using data from their systems. And so, Guy, thank you so much for coming into our program and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. I know we have some really great visuals today to showcase how you guys approach the topic.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure. It's always happy to be here.
All right, guys, stay tuned. We'll be right back with all the answers to hopefully all the questions. Okay, so we're back, and Guy, I think most companies find it super challenging to not only drive maximum ROI for clients, but proving it is a whole different level of difficulty.
I can really relate to it. I think that biggest challenge is tie what our service or product function or what we aim to do, and then translate it to dollars. And I think especially in today's climate, where we see like that companies are struggling and maybe need to like cut off budgets here and there. You want to make sure that decision makers can build a case when they go to finance people and tell them, hey, I need this. This helped me save X, Y, and Z. This is definitely a challenge.
So before we start unveiling your approach, would anybody that watches this episode, would they be able to take the framework and apply it, whether or not they have access to usage data, whether or not they're a software company?
So I would say you would need a visibility into your customers' data and usage. And if not, you'll have to rely on them sharing with you. I think in my previous company that was platform as a service, it would definitely be a lot more challenging to achieve as opposed to today that I'm operating as software as a service.
Okay, so fair enough. And so those who are listening to this episode are actually do have some usage data. Let's double down on what kind of usage data they need and how do you even start looking for the right metrics to use for the ROI. So before we dive into the how you guys developed this framework, can you just show us what are you actually showing? How do you actually proving the ROI calculation? I assume it was like probably in an EBR or a QBR with a client.
Yeah, this is usually being shown in a QBR. This is also a resource that sales utilize to show that, hey, we can take you from here to there. And this is the amount of money that we can save you in your operation. So over here, we have stats. These stats we get from our customer or prospect. We know like the number of developers that they have in their R&D organization. We know the work of hours per month. We understand, we also ask for the annual cost of a developer. This, of course, varies depending on where they operate. And then we rely on the metrics. We have to have visibility on how the customers are using the product and what is the baseline. I think establishing a baseline is crucial, not only when discussing ROI. Everything you want to measure, you have to have a starting point. If you don't have a starting point, you have nothing to compare to. So in our case, as customer success, we take them maybe from onboarding until we say, okay, now it's the end of the onboarding. We got to an adoption, see what we gained from that period of time and see how much more, like just think how much more we can gain from that. So after we establish the baseline, we can also show the improvement in the different metrics. Now, the improvement in the different metrics translates to an ROI. So we see the time that we've saved, we see it, so on and so forth. But in the end, the bottom line, this is meant for more senior leadership, C-level executive and above. We want to see the bottom line. We want to see the number, the dollar that we can actually help them save and shave off from their process.
Okay, so this is really interesting. There's a few areas here that some might contest that, well, how did you calculate the dollar amount? You don't really know how much they're paying their developers because your clients actually have, your users are actually developers, software developers. So how did you come up with that number? And do clients sometimes disagree with this number?
Yeah, so usually we ask for this number because the end users that we have different personas. We have the developers, we have the team leads, and we also have the decision makers, the VP. The VPs and the CTOs usually know how much in average they pay for a developer. But if we don't have this number, we can rely on industry benchmarks. Like we have like ranges of salaries for CSMs, for team leads, for VPs. We can find this number and we can maybe tweak it a little. We say, okay, maybe this number we can maybe jump a little, go down a little, but at the end we get a good sense of the direction that we're going to.
Do most of the statistics you're showing a client, are they coming in from your application, or are there any other statistics that you're asking for a client?
No, so all the statistics, besides the basic stats that we do require, the number of devs and the annual cost per dev, all the rest is taken directly from our product. We do have some process that is running that our data science team help us to build and calculate the dollar at the end. But yeah, all the metrics are coming directly from our product.
Okay, so this is a beautiful approach. It's very comprehensive. If I was a client and I was saying, all right, this is where I started, this is where I am now, and this is how it translates to a dollar amount, and it's based on industry benchmark, I'd probably be very happy. And I would say, all right, maybe tweak it for my business if I didn't share it before. So good job on that. And the presentation obviously is beautiful. And this is a really nice way of showing and demonstrating ROI to a client. It's very clean. It's very clear as to what it is that you guys have been doing. And it sounds like you can do it in a very relatively quick time. My question to you, Guy, maybe we go back in history a little bit. And how did you get to a point where you can even do that? You mentioned to me before that in order to develop this framework, you actually need quite a bit of collaboration with other team members, even before you start the conversation with a customer, or you even know how do you validate your approach. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is definitely company effort. This is something that CS on their own as a team will not be able to achieve. You need to have from the industry benchmarks, you might need help from marketing or product marketing, understanding the domain, what are the pain points, the gaps, where the money is being routed for. As I mentioned, you also need the data science help to help you translate all the stats into comprehensive numbers. You would also need the help of maybe product marketing to help you with this benchmarking based on industry standards. So when we show numbers that are metrics, so we want to tell you how you compare to the industry, because you can be elite in your organization. You can consider yourself elite, but maybe comparing to the industry, you have a place for improvement. Or maybe you could be like, maybe not the best at some metric, but actually comparing to the industry, you are doing quite well. So we feel like you need to have this understanding what is going on and how am I comparing to the rest of the industry.
Okay, so sounds like the first step you took is internally looked at some market research and came up with some statistics or metrics that you knew that your users and your clients might be very interested in terms of it's imperative to their business and the areas that you can impact with your software.
Yeah, definitely. So it started off as a research. Without doing the research, we couldn't even start thinking about building something like that.
Okay, and then what did you do? Did you share it with customers? Did you do like a beta program before you went to R&D and said, hey, can you please track these metrics? So
the metric that we have from the product, these are LinearB, it's a SaaS B2B data platform. So basically it's transparent both to us and both to the customers. What we are showing, they can go and cross-check and double-check. And this is something that is also available and visible for them. So we already had the metrics because this is what we are showing in the product, and combining that with the research, and after that with taking it one step forward with data science, we are able to present the tool that can generate even something like this slide.
All right, so you guys did a lot of research with marketing and all these different folks who actually came up and said, you know what, I think this is going to be a good ROI calculation for this group that we're catering to. So before you double down on all of these investments in tools and creating this beautiful slide, did you actually confirm that with your clients to just say, was there like a core group of clients that help you make these decisions just to validate your approach?
So what we did was a joint effort both from sales and CS. We took like a pilot group, a group of like maybe 5 prospects and 5 customers were like more friendlies, let's call it like this way. Told them, hey, we are working on something. We think it's going to help you to justify the cost of the tool and also build a case to the higher ups. It's like, hey, I need this tool because it helps me to save money. It helps me to become more efficient. It helps me to deliver more with my current staff. So after asking them for stats, we prepared that and we had like a meeting that we wanted to get their feedback. Does it make sense? Are we agreeing on all the metrics that are being showed here? Do we agree on the data? The data integrity seems correct to us. Do you want to see something else there? And after revising that and reiterating on that, we got to the final view that I've presented. And this is something that is working for us ever since.
That's awesome. Tell me a little bit as a CSM, how do you prepare towards an ROI discussion with a customer?
Yeah, so actually, I love ROI discussions and QBR. I know that some maybe in the crowd or people that are listening or watching this video might always we hear a QBR and this could be a bit frightening, but this is a good opportunity also to show success, to align or realign on goals, because maybe some of the goals that were important in the onboarding, now we have to shift them and we need to adjust them, but also to point out places for improvement or call to action. Because we know the reality itself, it's like in a perfect world, all the customers are happy, they're seeing improvement, they're realizing ROI without us even telling them how to connect the dots and seeing how we help them to achieve X or Y. But the reality is that some customers are struggling. Maybe adoption is not fully completed. Maybe we have technical issues or integration that we need to solve, or even like a significant feature request. So usually when preparing to this type of conversation, I go over all the support tickets that this customer had in this period of time, see if there are any outstanding issues. I go over to the NPS, there is an NPS score. I go over their feature requests. So if I can come up with at least an update or some easy wins that we can maybe achieve right before that, or a workaround, I look at the notes I have on my previous customer call, because in the QBR, usually you would meet your executive sponsor, maybe stakeholders that you don't communicate on a regular basis with. After compiling all of that, I go and I look at their data and I see if we align with their goals, if we help them to meet their goals. And if there are places that we need to connect the dots or showing a specific improvement that is tied to utilizing a specific feature. So it's also important to highlight that. It's also a great opportunity to enrich the data that they can see as customers, but sometimes we have more aspects or areas that we can show them. So this is also a great opportunity to tell story, but it's backed in data. So you kind of make your point.
Can you tell me about the worst experience you ever had showing the ROI calculation slide with the client?
So I think maybe not on the call itself, but sometimes you receive feedback, and feedback can be like, hey, we think that you might have like a wrong number, or like this doesn't really make sense. So in that sense, yeah, obviously, like you have prepared, you work hard on something. This is not like the worst thing that can ever happen to you, that like people doubt what you show. You just need to come back and do your homework and make sure that you are aligned. And usually when I do get this feedback with different stakeholders that I may have not met while presenting it, it's also a good chance to jump on a meeting with them and also multi-thread and maybe get higher up the chain to the people that are sitting on the finances. But this happens. This is part of life.
Part of life, exactly. So every now and then, anybody that creates an ROI calculator can expect that this would happen from time to time. Not everybody's going to agree with your assumptions, with your stats, with the way you translate it into dollar amounts. And I think what you shared is really valid. I think a lot of people get bogged down that this needs to be accurate. I think it just needs to be a conversation starter versus something that you take really seriously. And I mean, it should be serious, but you know what I mean? Like, you just need to make sure that the client understands this is a conversation starter. And if they have any issues or contentions around the data that's being shared, it's a good opportunity to kind of open it up and really get a better alignment.
I think, Irit, if I can give a tip to anyone that is out there and wants to create something of that for their own, is be transparent with your customers. So you can come with it already created, but you can show like, hey, this is the script I'm using, or this is like the spreadsheet that I'm using. These are the numbers that I'm putting in. You can also do it together with them. So aren't there any questions? And you can also share the formulas on how we calculate and how we get to these numbers. So if you are confident enough in the work that you did as a company, so you should also be confident enough to share it and be transparent with the customer. It helps build the credibility, and it reduces a lot the pushbacks and the questions that you will have on the later stage.
Awesome. Which reminds me, I haven't asked you yet, but when you just came up with this range of metrics you're going to use in your approach, I bet the first few times you did it, you actually used a manual spreadsheet to calculate those. And then afterwards, somebody actually calculated it for you with a script. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, this is correct. We generated the formula to make it easier for us. I think the point is like you need to create a process that you can replicate and will not take too much of effort, manual effort and time, because we want to go out there and be customer facing instead of like prepping all the things in the background. So yeah, it's like it had to go through some iterations, but now it takes like not a lot of time at all.
Yeah, I would say fair warning. Always start with a spreadsheet, test your theory out, adjust, as you said, and then put it in a script. Because once you put it in a script, then it's really hard to change. Like you're actually dependent on R&D to make any further changes to the script, right?
Yeah, this is totally correct. Once it's out there, it's harder to fix, but you gotta run your test, run your QA on your process.
Do you have a tool that actually generates this beautiful slide for you, or is it like you have a slide and then you put the numbers in manually?
So we have a slide template. The metrics are available. We just calculate them from the product itself, and the values that at the end we care about, it's like what is the dollar amount and how much time we save. This is like the output of the spreadsheets and the formula. So we just copy paste them and we just use the template to share. It's really easy. You put the logo of the customer and it's good to go.
That's awesome. What a great approach. How many of the data that you shared in the ROI calculator slide is actually available inside the product itself?
So pretty much all of it, leaving out the outcomes, like the numbers that are more advanced calculations. These are the ones that we need to come and present and back up and tell how we got to them. But all the stats themselves, like customers can see the improvement themselves in different metrics or not improving. And then we need to ask why together. But yeah, all of it is transparent and visible for customers as well.
That's cool. Now I know you had like a few metrics that you actually wanted to dive in and kind of explain a little bit more with regards to the ROI calculation. Is this something you wanted to walk us through?
Yeah, sure. The ROI calculation slide usually comes in the end. I build a story and then we present the outcome at the end. Like usually we're happy to see that together, but this is something that I can also, of course, share. I wanted to go forward. This is an outcome of a successful ROI conversation or QBR deck that we have shared. The customer obviously seen great improvement. We were very happy to celebrate it with them and also to use that as a resource that sales can use when approaching prospects and also for customer testimonial. And we're going to see the breakdown itself in the next slide so we can understand more what we are talking about.
Just to explain what we're seeing here, you're basically using two key metrics, pickup time and review time, that are very important for your clients. And then you're showcasing an actual graph to show how is the data pickup time, like duration, until there's like a milestone in that graph that shows when did they start using LinearB, and then you can see a significant drop in pickup time right after that.
Yes, for the ones with the sharp eyes. So in the ROI deck, we saw that we have pickup time and review time. These are two of the metrics that we also look at. Yeah, but the small b represents starting utilizing LinearB, and a very special feature, a flag feature that we have that's called worker B. So yeah, we indicate when we start adopting it and how it affected the metrics. This is a story in a slide. It's like a slide worth 1,000 words. So usually this slide speaks for itself.
That's awesome. Okay. Then, so you start with the two metrics, you show how a specific module was implemented and what was the impact immediately after. I mean, in your case, it's literally 1 month, and the reduction looks like it's like half what it used to be or more. All right. So then what's next?
Yeah. So basically, this is an example of how we share the data with the customer. So it's not only that we see like cycle time, it's a bigger metric, but it's very important also to highlight the improvement itself. So looking at the graph, it's maybe a bit harder to understand, like, wow, what impact that they made the change. We are showing them the change, but we help them together, but they made the change themselves. This is a great cause for celebration. And I think something that also is important to mention, that if you have any chance to celebrate success with your customer, don't wait out to ROI Conversation or QBR. Present a slide, take a snapshot, write a few words, like, great job. This is amazing to see. This is exactly the outcome I was hoping for. And just share it out. This is like, it can help you a lot. It can help your customers when they're like justifying into the higher ups. This is great. So yeah, we highlight the specific improvement. Very similar, we show that like cycle time contains few different metrics, coding time, pickup time, and review time. So we also help them, and we indicate, hey, this is when you started using the feature that we told you it's going to help. It's good that you trust us, and it's also very apparent and clear that we can see this significant improvement. Now, this comes a part where we kind of like did a handshake with R&D and asked R&D, hey, you have reporting tools, right? The reporting tools report on events that are happening in the products. This is where we can share customer data that they are not completely, they cannot see it. This is from our tooling. So it shows them the trend of this specific feature that we show, the worker bee. This is the trends of notification. And we see that the usage is happening more and more. This is where we can tell them, hey, this is cemented in your day-to-day. This is taking place, like, this is your end users that are seeing this notification. But not only that they are seeing notifications, this is amplitude. This is where we shake hands with our product team. It's the tool that tells us how end users interact with the notifications coming in. So it's not only noise, it's not only like that noise that no one is looking at. People actually, end users, actually interact with this notification, clicking on links, going into the product, and you can also see the story folds out. When you come with enriched data, you help to build the case. Improvement doesn't come from thin air. They make the improvement, but you have to show how you help them achieve that. And that's about it. I think this is.
And then you go into the ROI, right? Then you go.
And then we go to the ROI Calculator. Yeah, let's go there. Boom. And then we can have a discussion around ROI. After we said, like, hey, this is the story, bottom line, let's help you build the case.
That's awesome. So I want to emphasize that what this means is that you don't just jump into the ROI slide. You actually build into it by showing them data that they're familiar with, showing them impact of adopting different modules on their team's performance, maybe showing them a little bit behind the scenes how the adoption grew, and that this is actually a validation, essentially, that it is impactful since their team is gradually using it more and more. That is an accolade to the team saying, hey, this is actually helpful to me. I want to use it more.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't said it better. I think you can come and work with us in LinearB. Yeah, but exactly. This is exactly. We show them snapshots from the product itself. This is familiar grounds. And then we dive into something maybe a bit less familiar, but it makes sense. It doesn't come out of thin air.
Yeah, I think it's important because to drive a point that even if you can't calculate the actual amount, when you do a quarterly business review or an executive business review, sometimes the ROI is more qualitative. And I think those were the initial slides to the conversation. Hey, we're doing something that's impactful to your team. Even if you can't associate a specific dollar value, it's still quite valuable for an executive to see that there was some sort of an impact and that there is an improvement in the performance of his team.
Yeah, this is completely valid. And I think, yeah, coming out both with numbers and like sometimes I like to have also quotations in my slide. Like usually I ask for users from that company. It's like, hey, here are what people that are using LinearB in your organization have to tell about us. And so when you come out both with numbers and both with like, this is not really testimonials. This is like more of an internal testimonials, but it helps to build the case and just drive it home.
Wow, so many insightful nuggets here in this conversation around how to approach a conversation with a client around the value that you provided. How can you even calculate it using benchmark data? How do you validate that your thinking around what would matter to them is actually valid with the customer, with benchmark data and all that? I learned a lot, and I want to appreciate you for sharing all of that with us.
Sure, my pleasure.
This is awesome. As usual, Guy, this is your third video. If you guys haven't checked out his other two videos, one was about your nomination to the Rising Star Award and how you became the runner-up, second place. It's always great. And then I think the second one was just published recently. It's around story time and how do you share customer stories with cross-functional teams to really make the company more customer-centric in general. This was actually your initiative, and how did you approach it and why did it become such a huge success? So thank you so much for your time and for being so transparent.
My great pleasure. Thank you very much for having me, Orit.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. And guys, I see you at the next video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell all your customer success friends. It really helps the channel a lot.